Wilted lettuce salad with hot bacon dressing. The lettuce was fresh-picked, soft, and fading fast in the summer heat. That's when you moved quick, because this wasn't the kind of salad you served cold. This was a Depression-era secret, something you could make with bacon grease, vinegar, and a bit of sugar that transformed tired greens into a Sunday side dish. You'd tear the lettuce by hand, no fancy knives, no fuss, and drop it into a big bowl. Then you'd heat up a skillet with saved bacon fat, a spoonful of vinegar, a little water, and a pinch of sugar. Maybe an onion slice if it hadn't gone soft. When the mixture sizzled, you poured it straight over the greens. They hissed, they softened. And suddenly your kitchen smelled like a mix of breakfast and garden soil. The lettuce wilted just enough, not soggy, just tender. You'd toss it gently, serve it warm, maybe add a chopped hard-boiled egg if you were lucky that week. It tasted sweet, salty, tangy, like it came from a proper restaurant, not from a backyard and a coffee tin full of drippings. "This salad's hot," someone might say, eyebrow raised. You'd grin. It's not just salad, it's supper. Because when meat was scarce and lettuce wouldn't last another day, this warm, wilting bowl brought comfort that couldn't be canned. Apple peel vinegar. You didn't throw out apple peels back then, not a single one. After pie making or drying apple slices, folks gathered up the peels and cores in a jar, covered them with water, and added a spoonful of sugar. That's it. No store-bought yeast, no fancy bottles, just scraps, time, and a little kitchen faith. You'd set that jar near a warm window and wait. A few days in, the sweet smell turned sharp. A week later, it was tart enough to pucker your lips. By the time it hit 3 weeks, you had full-blown vinegar, strong, cloudy, and alive with tang. That vinegar was worth gold. You used it in pickles, poured it over cooked greens, or mixed it into coleslaw. Some even used it for cleaning. It made everything feel fresher, cleaner, brighter. A sharp splash that cut through the heaviness of fried foods and oily dressings. If you had a cough or sore throat, a spoonful of apple vinegar in hot water was a go-to remedy. Mixed with honey, it became a tonic. Added to biscuits or pie crust, it made them flakier. There wasn't a scrap of that vinegar that went to waste. It's just peels, someone might say, and you'd smile, because that's all it ever was. Peels, cores, water, sugar. But the outcome? Useful, lasting, and full of punch. Apple vinegar didn't just stretch your pantry, it stretched your sense of control. Even when money was gone and shelves were bare, this sharp little miracle reminded you nothing was useless, just like stale bread, which turned from rock-hard waste into the secret that saved nearly every meat dinner you served next. Breadcrumb meat stretchers. When meat was precious, you didn't cook it straight, you stretched it, you made it count. And the trick most mothers knew by heart? Breadcrumbs. They'd take stale bread, the kind so hard you could knock on it, and soak it in milk or water just long enough to soften, then squeeze it dry, crumble it with your fingers, and mix it straight into ground beef or pork. What came out wasn't less meaty, it was better. Meatloaf, meatballs, sausage patties, all got lighter, juicier, and more flavorful. The crumbs soaked up fat and seasoning, held everything together, and made that single pound of meat feed twice as many mouths. In homes with 6 kids and 1 paycheck, this wasn't a tip, it was a rule. Some added chopped onions, mustard, or eggs. Others used dried herbs or leftover mashed potatoes to bulk it even further. But always, the core was the bread. Meat again? A kid might ask, and Mama would grin. Sure is. They didn't know how much bread was in there. They just tasted something warm, filling, and familiar. It wasn't a feast, but it felt like one. Even the hard edges of the bread, usually tossed, were ground fine and saved in a tin, used to coat fried foods or bind salmon patties. Those crumbs made everything stick and stretch. Breadcrumbs weren't just a meat stretcher, they were the invisible helper. The quiet secret that made every Depression-era dinner go a little further without ever feeling short. And when bread ran out too, that's when the hacks got real desperate, like boiling newspaper just to thicken soup and make it feel like a meal. Lard jar biscuits. Back then, you didn't toss bacon grease. You saved it, every drop. Sitting on the stove was a tin can, sometimes an old coffee tin, filled with hardened, cloudy lard scraped from the skillet after every fry. It wasn't pretty. It didn't smell sweet, but it was gold. When it came time to bake, you'd scoop from that jar with a big spoon. No measuring, just enough. The lard was soft in summer, stiff as butter in winter. You'd cut it into flour with your hands, cool and crumbly, until the dough held together with just a splash of water or sour milk. Those biscuits didn't rise tall and fluffy like the ones in cookbooks. They were wide, sturdy, golden on the bottom, and greasy in a way that made your lips shine. The kitchen filled with the smell of smoke and warmth, like bacon and fresh bread holding hands. You'd serve them hot right out of the oven. No butter needed. The fat was baked in. Sometimes you'd split one and stuff it with sliced tomato or scrambled egg. Other times it was just biscuit and hot coffee, enough to count as breakfast, lunch, or even a quick supper. This from scratch? Someone might ask. You'd just nod. Because the truth was, it wasn't really from scratch. It was built from what you'd already used. Fat from Sunday's breakfast, flour from a sack you hoped would last the month, and scraps of know-how passed down by mothers who never owned a cookbook. And when those biscuits were gone and the coffee pot was empty, you didn't toss that water either. You reused it 3 ways, because back then, even boiled water had work left to do. Leftover water reuse map. Water wasn't just water. It was a tool, a worker, a silent part of every meal. You boiled it once and used it 3 times, not because it was smart, but because it was survival. Let's say you boiled potatoes. When the spuds were done and scooped out, that water, cloudy and starchy, didn't go down the drain. You poured it into a jar, set it on the counter, and later that night added it to soup. It thickened the broth, added salt, and gave the stew a body that plain water couldn't touch. If you didn't use it for food, it became wash water, greasy pots, sticky spoons, whatever needed cleaning. The starch in the water helped lift grime. Hot, reused water felt just as useful as fresh, especially when you only had a few buckets a day from the well. And if there was still some left after dishes, you carried that pot outside and poured it under the tomatoes or along the rows of beans. The plants didn't care where it came from. They just needed moisture. This water's been everywhere, you might joke, and it had. From food to cleanup to garden, a single pot did 3 jobs. No waste, no second thoughts. Even the act of saving it felt like a small victory. In a world where every drop mattered, every use felt like stretching time, money, and luck just a little further. Kids learned early. You don't dump water, you wait, you repurpose, you give it one more task. And when even water ran low, when wells dried and rain didn't come, folks turned to tricks like onion peel tea and roasted peanut shells, not to waste time, but to keep something warm in their hands and hope in their bellies. Oatmeal sausage. You wanted meat, but there wasn't any. Not in the icebox, not at the butcher's, not anywhere. So you did what every smart cook did. You made your own. Not from pork, but from oats. You'd take old-fashioned rolled oats and boil them just enough to soften. Then, the trick, seasoning. A heavy hand of salt, pepper, maybe a pinch of sage or red pepper flakes if your spice tin still rattled. Some even stirred in mashed beans or leftover mashed potatoes for texture. You'd mix it all together in a bowl that smelled almost like breakfast, almost like dinner. Then came the shaping. Wet hands, hot pan. You'd form the mixture into patties, fry them in bacon grease or lard until the outside turned golden and crisp. The edges sizzled and curled like sausage. The smell, nutty and rich, tricked your nose into believing. You'd serve it hot, maybe with a spoonful of canned apples or a smear of mustard if you had it. Cut it open and steam rose. The inside was soft, almost creamy. But the flavor? That punch of pepper and smoke made you forget there wasn't a scrap of meat inside. "Is this sausage?" someone might ask, fork in hand. You'd smile. Close enough, and it was. Because back then, dinner wasn't about what you had. It was about what you could make with what you had left. These oat patties stretched $1, fed a family, gave tired hands something to cook, and hungry mouths something warm to chew. And when you didn't even have oats, just a few stray ketchup packets and some hot water, you still found a way to make supper.